One ruled through fear, ending fights in seconds. Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather. Power against skill, chaos against control. It never happened, but the question still haunts boxing. If they fought, who walks out the winner? Mike Tyson's rise in the 1980s is one of the most dramatic stories in sports history. Born in Brooklyn, raised amid poverty and crime, Tyson was headed toward disaster until he met trainer Cus D'Amato, who saw in him a spark of greatness. Under Cus's discipline, Tyson became a machine, fast, powerful, and utterly terrifying. At just 20 years old, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history, a record that still stands. But Tyson wasn't just a boxer, he was an aura. His walkouts were silent, no music, no theatrics, just a towel cut into a makeshift robe and eyes that burned through opponents. Before the bell even rang, fighters often looked beaten, and when it did, they didn't last long. Tyson's knockouts were vicious and sudden. Michael Spinks flattened in 91 seconds, Trevor Berbick stumbling across the ring as his body refused to obey him. Tyson combined incredible speed with bone-crushing power. His peekaboo style let him slip punches and explode with hooks and uppercuts that ended careers. Fans didn't just watch Tyson fights, they braced for them. Every round felt like a countdown to destruction. This was the Tyson who became known as the baddest man on the planet, a fighter who made grown men shake, a champion who turned heavyweight boxing into must-see TV. Yet every empire has its counterforce, and for Tyson's unstoppable fury, history would imagine the perfect opposite: Floyd Mayweather's untouchable genius. Where Tyson was chaos, Floyd Mayweather was control. Born into a boxing family in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Floyd was practically raised in the ring. His father, Floyd Sr., taught him the basics. His uncles, Jeff and Roger, sharpened his skills. By the time Floyd turned pro in 1996, he already looked like a complete fighter. Early in his career, he was Pretty Boy Floyd, a sharp, fast, offensive boxer who could overwhelm opponents with speed. But over time, he transformed into Money Mayweather, the defensive mastermind who built a perfect 50-0 record. His secret weapon was the shoulder roll, a style that let him deflect punches with microscopic movements and counter with laser precision. Opponents swung and missed over and over, while Floyd smiled and picked them apart. His resume reads like a Hall of Fame itself. Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, Ricky Hatton, Shane Mosley. One by one, they all fell short. Some landed punches, some pushed him close, but nobody solved him. Floyd never had Tyson's raw power, but he had the one thing Tyson's opponents lacked: the ability to stay calm under fire and make split-second adjustments. Mayweather wasn't just a fighter, he was a brand. He turned himself into the highest-paid athlete in the world, selling not just wins, but the aura of perfection. Fans tuned in to watch him lose, and he never gave them that satisfaction. So now the stage is set. Tyson, the destroyer, against Mayweather, the ghost. Two men at opposite ends of boxing's spectrum, united by one thing: dominance. At first glance, Tyson versus Mayweather makes no sense. Tyson was a heavyweight, a 220-pound wrecking ball. Mayweather was a lightweight and welterweight star, rarely fighting above 154 pounds. 100 pounds separated them, along with decades of history. But dream fights don't care about reality. They live in the space between imagination and debate. Fans love asking, what if? Ali versus Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Floyd, even Tyson Fury versus prime Mike Tyson. These matchups aren't about contracts or weight classes. They're about archetypes. Tyson embodies pure aggression, the fighter who ends nights early. Mayweather embodies pure precision, the man who turns fights into chess matches. They are polar opposites, which is exactly why people can't stop arguing over them. Could Mayweather, with his flawless defense, survive Tyson's storm? Could Tyson, with his ferocity, break through Floyd's reflexes and land the shot that ends everything? It's the classic clash: immovable object versus unstoppable force. Of course, in the real world, Tyson and Mayweather never belonged in the same division, let alone the same ring. But in the world of imagination, rules bend. Fans strip away the weight classes and ask, what happens if you match the most feared heavyweight against the most skilled defensive fighter? That question fuels endless barbershop debates, YouTube simulations, and late-night arguments. And to answer it, we have to go further than stats and records. We have to imagine the rules, the ring, and the moment when fear and perfection finally collide. Before we even imagine what happens when Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather share the ring, we have to ask, under what rules could this fantasy ever take place? On paper, the matchup is absurd. Tyson was a heavyweight juggernaut, often weighing around 218 to 220 pounds in his prime. Mayweather, meanwhile, built his empire between lightweight, super welterweight, and occasionally junior middleweight, never fighting above 154 pounds. That's a 60 to 70 pound gap, the size of an entirely different human being. But dream fights are not about reality. fantasy. They're about bending rules until imagination takes over. Scenario 1. The catchweight fantasy. Imagine a middle ground where Tyson, instead of bulking up, somehow shrinks down to around 160 or 168 pounds. Impossible biologically? Absolutely. But this is fantasy, so let's play it out. Tyson's speed and explosiveness might still carry down, but losing weight could sap some of the raw power that made him so terrifying. In contrast, Mayweather would be closer to his natural size, still quick and defensively sharp, able to use the smaller ring dimensions to dance and counter. This scenario favors Floyd, but does it really capture Tyson's essence? Scenario 2. The open weight spectacle. Forget weight classes entirely. Picture Tyson in his prime at 220, standing across from Mayweather at 150. The size gap alone would be terrifying, but stranger things have happened in combat sports. Remember when Floyd himself stepped into the ring with a towering kickboxer in Japan? Or when Conor McGregor fought him in a boxing ring despite coming from MMA? Fans don't care about fairness in fantasy. They care about seeing opposites collide. In this case, Mayweather would have to rely on movement, running, and absolute perfection for every second. Tyson would need only one mistake. Scenario 3. The exhibition era. In today's boxing climate, we've seen Floyd take part in exhibitions against Logan Paul and Tenshin Nasukawa. Tyson, too, returned in 2020 for his exhibition against Roy Jones Jr. Imagine a modern-day promoter like Saudi Arabia or Triller throwing down hundreds of millions to make Tyson versus Mayweather happen as a pure spectacle. 8 rounds, big gloves, no official result. It wouldn't be about titles or ranking. It would be about cultural electricity. Every scenario, the fight requires suspension of disbelief. That's the beauty of what-if debates. They free us from contracts, promoters, and biology, leaving us with the pure question: power versus skill, destruction versus defense. Once the rules are set, we can finally get to the meat of the debate. How do their styles collide? Mike Tyson was not your typical heavyweight. Unlike the towering giants of the division, Tyson stood just 5 feet 10 inches, often shorter than the men he demolished. But that difference became his greatest weapon. Guided by Cus D'Amato's peekaboo style, Tyson moved like no heavyweight before him, slipping punches, weaving side to side, and then exploding with lightning-fast combinations. His fists weren't just heavy, they were sudden, unpredictable, and perfectly placed. Tyson's fights often felt like storms. From the opening bell, he would stalk forward, bobbing, weaving, and cutting off the ring. Most heavyweights needed time to warm up. Tyson was dangerous from the very first second. That's why so many of his knockouts came in the first round. Fighters barely had time to get their bearings before a left hook or right uppercut crashed through their guard. What made Tyson terrifying wasn't just his power, but the psychological warfare. By the time opponents stepped into the ring, they'd already seen his highlight reels, already heard the whispers about his knockouts in sparring, already felt the chill of his stare-downs. Many fighters admitted they were beaten before the first punch landed. Tyson thrived on that fear, and he weaponized it better than anyone in history. Against Mayweather, Tyson's strategy would be clear: corner him, cut off the ring, and unleash. He wouldn't be looking to box or play patient games. He'd be looking to smash through Floyd's defense before it could settle into rhythm. In fantasy simulations, you can almost picture it. Mayweather circling, rolling with shots, trying to clinch, while Tyson barrels forward like a wrecking ball. The danger? Tyson never fought someone as elusive as Floyd. Most of his opponents were big men with slower reflexes. They couldn't slip and counter the way Mayweather could. But that didn't matter in Tyson's world. He didn't need a dozen openings. He only needed one. And that's why fans believe Tyson's style is the ultimate test of Mayweather's perfection. Could the greatest defensive genius really avoid every bomb Tyson threw? Or would the storm eventually break through the calm? If Tyson was the storm, Mayweather was the eye at its center. Calm, controlled, unshakable. Floyd's entire career was built on one truth: you cannot hit what you cannot catch. While Tyson thrived on speed and aggression, Mayweather thrived on patience and precision. His mastery of the shoulder roll defense allowed him to absorb punches on his forearms, slip shots by millimeters, and counter with surgical accuracy. What set Floyd apart wasn't just his defense, it was his adaptability. Against aggressive brawlers like Marcos Maidana, he adjusted to their pressure and took control. Against slick boxers like Zab Judah, he turned their speed against them. Against young lions like Canelo Alvarez, he made them look amateur. Floyd didn't just fight opponents, he dismantled them piece by piece. The question is, could that genius survive Tyson's storm? On paper, Mayweather's footwork and ring IQ would help him survive longer than most. He could circle, tie Tyson up in clinches, frustrate him, and drag the fight into later rounds where Tyson historically slowed down. Floyd's stamina and composure were unmatched. 12 rounds of movement and focus never broke him. If anyone could make Tyson swing and miss, it would be Floyd. But here's the catch: Floyd's genius always relied on being close enough in size and speed to neutralize his opponent. opponent. Against Tyson, the physics alone would be brutal. Tyson's punches, even partially blocked, carried heavyweight force. A glove deflected by Mayweather's shoulder might still rattle him like a bomb going off. Floyd could avoid 99 punches, but the 100th might be the one that ends it. Still, Mayweather's believers argue that his greatest weapon wasn't just his defense, it was his mind. He fought like a chess player, staying 3 moves ahead. He knew when to frustrate, when to flurry, and when to clinch. Tyson, by contrast, struggled when opponents didn't fold to fear. Fighters like Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis exposed that if you could weather Tyson's early storm, he could be broken. Mayweather, calm as ever, would look to do exactly that: outlast, outthink, and turn Tyson's aggression into mistake. So here's the dilemma. Tyson brings unstoppable pressure. Mayweather brings untouchable defense. One thrives on chaos, the other on control. The outcome depends not on who they are alone, but on how their styles would react in the fire of the ring. And that's why this "what if" has lived for decades. It forces us to ask, does power always break through, or can skill and patience tame even the fiercest storm? Picture the scene: a packed arena, lights cutting through smoke, and 2 of the most iconic names in boxing walking toward the ring. On one side, Mike Tyson in his trademark black trunks, no robe, no entourage, just menace. On the other, Floyd Mayweather, smiling, draped in diamonds, walking to the beat of his entrance music with the calm confidence of a man who has never tasted defeat. The crowd isn't just buzzing, it's trembling with anticipation. This is more than a fight. It's a fantasy being played out in real time. Every fight carries stakes, but Tyson versus Mayweather would carry more than belts, money, or records. This would be a collision of legacies, a clash that could rewrite how both men are remembered. For Mike Tyson, the stakes would be validation. Tyson's career, for all its highlights, has always been a story of extremes. The meteoric rise to youngest heavyweight champion, the devastating knockouts, the fear he inspired. But critics point to his losses against Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis, to the chaos outside the ring, and argue that Tyson's dominance was as much about intimidation as skill. Beating Floyd Mayweather, the most technically brilliant fighter of his era, would silence those doubts forever. It would prove Tyson wasn't just a wrecking ball, he was capable of dismantling perfection. If he lost, though, especially if he was outboxed and frustrated, it would feed the narrative that once his early storm passed, Tyson could be undone. For Floyd Mayweather, the stakes are almost heavier. His entire brand is built on perfection, 50-0, never beaten, the smartest man in the ring. Taking on Tyson, even in a fantasy, would mean risking that aura. If Floyd somehow found a way to survive Tyson's onslaught and win, it would elevate his status beyond anything else he ever did. It would show that his skill could conquer even raw destruction. But if Tyson cracked him early, if Floyd ended up on the canvas, staring at the lights, it would shatter the myth of invincibility that Floyd cultivated. He'd no longer be the untouchable genius, he'd be the man who finally met a force he couldn't neutralize. For boxing itself, the stakes are cultural. This fight represents 2 philosophies of the sport. Tyson embodies the primal chaos that makes boxing thrilling, the one-punch knockout, the destruction that lives in highlight reels forever. Mayweather embodies the artistry, the chess game, the perfection of hitting and not getting hit. Fans argue not just about who would win, but about what matters more: power or skill, violence or precision, chaos or control. The outcome wouldn't just crown a winner, it would crown an idea. That's why this debate feels bigger than the ring. It's not just Tyson versus Mayweather. It's a referendum on what boxing means. Is it the spectacle of a knockout, or the genius of outsmarting every opponent? Whoever fans imagine winning, they're really choosing what version of boxing they believe defines greatness. The beauty of Tyson versus Mayweather is that it never happened. And because it never happened, it lives forever in the imagination of fight fans. Every generation rediscovers the debate. Every YouTube simulation sparks new arguments. Every barbershop conversation circles back to the same question: what if? For Tyson, the legacy of this fantasy fight is a reminder of his aura. Decades after his prime, people still see him as the ultimate test of fear and power. They remember the knockouts, the intimidation, the way he changed heavyweight boxing into a global spectacle. Even without facing Floyd, Tyson's name in the debate proves his impact. He represents power in its purest form. For Mayweather, the fantasy keeps his legend sharp. Floyd fought everyone in his era, from Oscar de la Hoya to Manny Pacquiao, from Canelo Alvarez to Miguel Cotto. He beat them all. Yet fans still want to imagine him against the men he never could face: bigger, scarier legends from other eras. Why? Because Floyd represents the ultimate puzzle. If Tyson is the wrecking ball, Floyd is the unbreakable safe. Fans want to know if the wrecking ball could smash it, or if the safe would hold forever. Culturally, the Tyson versus Mayweather debate symbolizes boxing itself. The sport has always thrived on what-if matchups. Ali versus Marciano, Sugar Ray versus Mayweather, Fury versus TRAGICALLY. These debates keep boxing alive, even when the biggest real fights take years to make. They let fans step outside reality and play with imagination, crafting scenarios where eras collide, styles clash, and legends never age. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Tyson versus Mayweather doesn't need an answer. If we crowned a winner, the debate would end. The fire would fade. But because it's unsolvable, because we'll never know, the argument stays alive forever. Fans can debate Tyson's power against Mayweather's defense for decades to come, and neither side can ever truly win. In that sense, Tyson versus Mayweather isn't just a fight that never happened. It's a story, a myth, a cultural campfire around which fans gather to argue. It's about power versus skill, fear versus brilliance, destruction versus perfection. And maybe the real victory is that this debate, this what if, ensures that both Tyson and Mayweather remain eternal, forever linked, forever argued, forever legendary.